The marble steps were cold against my palms as I caught myself from falling. My white coat, the one I'd carefully pressed for today's announcement, was now wrinkled and dusty. From above, I could hear Mother's quick intake of breath, Sister's poorly concealed snicker, and Brother's muttered serves her right. Dad stood at the top of the stairs, his face red with the familiar rage I'd grown up seeing. 20 years as the hospital's senior surgeon had given him an authority he wielded like a scalpel, both at work and at home. "You think getting a medical degree makes you special?" he spat. "You'll never be more than a basic resident." I rose carefully, checking my watch. 2:45 p.m. The board meeting would start at 5 p.m. sharp. Perfect timing, as always. "I came to tell you something important," I said quietly, brushing off my coat. "About the hospital." "The hospital?" Dad's laugh was harsh. "You clean bedpans in the ER. What could you possibly know about hospital operations?" Mother stepped forward, her tennis bracelet catching the afternoon light. "Dear, perhaps you should focus on finding a nice doctor to marry. Someone like your brother, chief resident at 32. Ah yes, brother dearest. The golden child who'd failed his boards twice, but still got promoted thanks to Dad's influence. The same brother who'd lost 3 patients last month, due to surgical errors that were quietly covered up. Marriage is for people who can't succeed on their own." Sister chimed in from her perch by the door. "But then again, that's all she's got left, isn't it?" I checked my watch again. 2:50 p.m. The board members would be arriving soon for the pre-meeting review, the one where they'd go over the evidence I'd spent 2 years collecting. "You're right," I said calmly. "I should focus on my career." "Career?" Dad stepped down, looming over me. "You've been skating by on my name for years. Basic resident work, nothing special. No leadership potential. No surgical talent, just another diversity hire they pushed through to meet quotas." The words were familiar. I'd heard variations of them throughout medical school, residency, and my fellowship. Each time, I'd smiled and documented everything. Every dismissal, every passed-over promotion, every case they'd given to less qualified doctors. "The board meeting is at 5 p.m., I said softly. "You should change your tie. The blue one looks better for important announcements." Dad's face darkened. "How do you know about the board meeting?" "Oh, didn't you hear?" I brushed the last bit of dust from my coat. "I was specially invited." "Invited?" Mother's voice rose sharply. "Why would they invite a resident?" I checked my phone. 3 messages from the board secretary confirming the documentation was ready. 2 from the hospital lawyers. 1 from the state medical board acknowledging receipt of my reports. "They probably want her to serve refreshments." Sister laughed. "Finally found her true calling." I smiled, remembering the sealed envelopes sitting in the boardroom, the ones containing proof of every patient death covered up, every violation ignored, every piece of evidence I'd gathered while they dismissed me as just a resident. "You've embarrassed this family enough." Dad grabbed my arm. "Go back to your little ER. Stay away from the board meeting. In fact, stay away from us forever." I gently removed his hand. "As you wish." The sound of car doors closing echoed from the driveway. Right on schedule. The board members arriving for their pre-meeting review. Dad's face paled slightly as voices approached. "What did you do?" he whispered. "Nothing," I replied truthfully. "I just kept very careful records." Mother stepped forward, her society smile firmly in place. "Darling, perhaps we should discuss this privately." "No need." I checked my watch one final time. "The board is waiting." "The board doesn't wait for residents," Brother sneered. "You're right." I adjusted my coat and name badge, the one that had arrived this morning with my new title. "They wait for the chief of surgery." The silence was absolute. Through the open door, I could see the board members gathering in the driveway, each carrying copies of the files I'd sent detailing 2 years of violations, cover-ups, and corruption. "Chief of..." Dad's face went from red to white. "That's impossible. I'm chief of surgery." "Not since this morning." I picked up my briefcase. The board voted unanimously after reviewing my documentation. They were particularly interested in Brother's patient mortality rates. Sister's laugh died in her throat. Mother's tennis bracelet suddenly looked very tight. "You can't," Dad started. "I can." I did. "And in about 2 hours everyone will know exactly why." I turned toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Dad, you might want to call your lawyer. The state medical board has some questions about those covered-up deaths." As I walked to my car, I could hear Mother's frantic whispers, Sister's shocked questions, and Brother's beginning panic. But Dad's silence was loudest of all. I had 2 hours until the board meeting. 2 hours until my family learned exactly what their basic resident had been doing these past 2 years. 2 hours until everything changed. I smiled as I started my car. Perfect timing indeed. The hospital boardroom was exactly as I remembered from my years of serving refreshments. Mahogany table gleaming under recessed lighting, leather chairs arranged with military precision, and floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the city. But today, I wasn't here to serve coffee. Dr. Anderson Board Chairman Phillips greeted me with a firm handshake. Your office is ready, and the transition team has prepared everything as requested. I nodded, taking my seat at the head of the table, Dad's seat for the past 20 years. The irony wasn't lost on me. The files, I asked quietly. Distributed to all members, Phillips confirmed. The state medical board representatives are joining us virtually. They're particularly interested in the mortality rate data. The door opened and Dad strode in, still wearing his stained tie from our earlier encounter. His confident swagger faltered when he saw me in his chair. Behind him, Brother looked like he might be sick. What is the meaning of this? Dad demanded, his voice carrying the authority that had cowed residents and nurses for 2 decades. That's my seat. Not anymore, Dr. Anderson Sr., Phillips said calmly. Please take a seat. Your daughter, our new chief of surgery, has some matters to discuss. The color drained from Dad's face as the other board members filed in. Each carried a thick folder stamped with confidential in red letters. 2 large screens on the wall flickered to life, showing the stern faces of the state medical board representatives. Before we begin, I opened my laptop. Would anyone like coffee? I do have experience serving it, after all. Dad flinched. Brother stared at his hands. Now then, I pulled up the first presentation slide. Let's discuss the rather interesting pattern of patient mortalities in the past 2 years, particularly those involving certain privileged residents. Brother's head snapped up. You can't. Case number 1, I continued, as if he hadn't spoken. Patient Sarah Martinez, age 42. Simple appendectomy turned fatal due to, quote, unforeseen complications. The actual surgical notes, which were conveniently misplaced, but which I preserved, show a completely severed artery, due to surgeon incompetence. That's confidential information. Dad stood up, his chair scraping back. Sit down, Doctor. Anderson, one of the medical board members, said sharply through the screen. Your daughter has provided extensive documentation of not only the surgical errors, but also your systematic attempts to cover them up. I clicked to the next slide. Case number 2, Michael Chen, age 55, died during a routine cholecystectomy. Official cause listed as cardiac event. Actual cause, surgical instrument left inside the patient. The surgeon in question was allowed to continue operating the next day. Brother was now visibly sweating. Dad's hands gripped the table edge. How long? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. How long what? I asked, though I knew exactly what he meant. How long have you been gathering evidence against your own family? I leaned forward, meeting his eyes. Since the day you told me I'd never be more than a basic resident. Since you started promoting Brother despite his failures. Since you decided that protecting your reputation was worth more than patient lives. Everything I did was to protect this family. Dad's fist hit the table. No, I corrected quietly. Everything you did was to protect your ego. And now it's cost you everything. Phillips cleared his throat. In light of the evidence, the board has unanimously voted for immediate termination of both Dr. Anderson Sr. and Dr. Anderson Jr.'s privileges at this hospital. The state medical board is launching a full investigation, and criminal charges may be pending. Brother made a choking sound. Dad seemed to age 10 years in 10 seconds. You've destroyed this family, he said hoarsely. No, Dad, you did that yourself. I just documented it. As security arrived to escort them out, I remembered all the family dinners, where I'd been dismissed, all the holidays where I'd been belittled, all the years of being treated as nothing more than a servant in scrubs. Oh, and Dad, I called as he reached the door. About that diversity hire comment. I graduated top of my class at Harvard Medical. Unlike some people, I actually earned my position. The door closed behind them with a final click. The board members were already discussing transition plans, but I allowed myself a moment to absorb the reality of what had just happened. My phone buzzed, a text from Mother. How could you do this to your father? I typed back a simple response. Ask him how many families he destroyed by covering up brother's mistakes. Another buzz. Sister, this time, you'll regret this. I smiled, remembering her laughter as I got up from those marble steps just hours ago. No, I wrote back. I really won't. Chairman Phillips touched my arm gently. Dr. Anderson, the press is waiting for the announcement. I stood, straightening my white coat. Then let's not keep them waiting. After all, timing is everything. The hospital auditorium was packed. Nurses, doctors, residents, and staff filled every seat, with more standing along the walls. News cameras lined the back, their red lights blinking. Word had spread fast. The great Dr. Anderson had fallen, and his basic resident daughter was now in charge. I stood backstage, listening to the murmurs of the crowd. Many of these people had watched Dad belittle me over the years. Some had joined in, thinking it would curry favor with the chief. Others had stayed silent, afraid to challenge the hospital's hierarchy. 5 minutes, Dr. Anderson, my new assistant said softly. Through the curtain, I caught a glimpse of mother and sister slipping into the back row. They hadn't been invited, but I'd expected them to show up. They never could resist a public spectacle. Dr. Anderson. It was Jessica, a nurse who'd suffered under Dad's tyrannical leadership for years. The staff. We just wanted you to know, we're behind you. What you did, exposing the cover-ups, it was brave. I smiled, remembering how she'd secretly slipped me documentation of brother's mistakes when no one was watching. Thank you, Jessica. Things will be different now. Chairman Phillips stepped up to the podium, and the room fell silent. As many of you have heard, significant changes have occurred in our hospital's leadership today. Serious ethical violations have been uncovered, leading to immediate termination of several senior staff members. But more importantly, we're here to introduce your new chief of surgery. I took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The gasps were audible. In the back, I saw Mother's hand fly to her pearl necklace, the one Dad had bought her after covering up brother's first fatal mistake. Thank you, Chairman Phillips, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the auditorium. For those who don't know me, though I've served many of you coffee during board meetings, I'm Dr. Sarah Anderson, and yes, I'm the former chief's daughter. A ripple of whispers swept through the crowd. In the third row, I spotted brother's wife, her face pale with shock. For too long, this hospital has operated under a system of privilege, nepotism, and cover-ups. Lives have been lost, not because of unavoidable complications, but because of protected incompetence. That ends today. I clicked to my first slide, the new hospital protocols I'd spent months developing. Effective immediately, all surgical errors will be thoroughly documented and reviewed. No exceptions, no cover-ups, no special treatment. Every surgeon, regardless of their last name or connections, will be held to the same standard of excellence. In the back, Sister was frantically typing on her phone, probably updating our extended family about the public humiliation. Let her. Furthermore, promotions will be based on merit, not relationships. I've reviewed every resident's performance records personally. Some of you will be advanced, others, I paused, thinking of brother's protected position, will need to prove they deserve to be here. Mother stood up abruptly, pulling Sister toward the exit. Their heels clicked against the floor, the sound echoing in the silent auditorium. I continued as if I hadn't noticed. To those who've suffered under the old system, who've been overlooked or silenced, I say this: your time of hiding is over. My door will always be open. Your voices will be heard. Jessica wiped a tear from her eye. Around her, other nurses nodded firmly. And to those who've benefited from the corruption, I looked directly at brother's wife, who seemed to shrink in her seat. You have a choice. Adapt to our new standards of excellence, or find another hospital. There will be no third option. The applause started slowly, then built to a thunderous roar. Years of fear and frustration poured out as the staff rose to their feet. In that moment, I saw something I'd never seen in all my years here: hope. My phone buzzed in my pocket, Dad's number. I declined the call without looking at it. He'd had 20 years to speak. Now it was my turn. One last thing, I said as the applause died down. To every resident who's been told they're not good enough, every nurse who's been dismissed, every staff member who's been made to feel small, look at where I'm standing. Look at what speaking truth can do. The days of serving coffee are over. The standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. As the crowd finally began to disperse, Jessica approached the podium. Dr. Anderson, your father's personal items have been cleared from the chief's office. Would you like to see your new workspace? I smiled, thinking of all the times Dad had kicked me out of that office, telling me I'd never be worthy of it. Yes, I said, gathering my files. I believe I would. As I walked through the hospital halls, staff members nodded respectfully, not because of my last name, but because of what I'd done, what I'd exposed, what I'd changed. My phone buzzed again, a text from Mother. You've torn this family apart. I typed back 3 words before turning off my phone. No, I fixed it.